Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the program. You're watching our mid-morning edition of Arirang News on this Friday, May 29th. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Shin Se-min. At the top of the hour, these are the stories we're following. A new cluster in South Korea causes daily COVID-19 cases to hit a 2-month high as the country tries to regain a degree of normalcy. South Korean authorities are on course to approve an Ebola treatment called Remdesivir later today. South Korea's factory output in April plunged at its sharpest pace since 2008, down 4.5%. This as Asia's fourth largest economy contracted on year in the first 3 months this year. Plus, the UN Security Council is likely to convene as worries grow over China's encroachment upon Hong Kong with its new national security law. Global leaders are already voicing their concerns over Beijing's move. South Korea is likely to officially accept the use of Remdesivir, an Ebola treatment that has emerged as a new hope in tackling coronavirus. According to sources, a group of infectious disease experts agreed on Thursday to recommend the use of the drug to the nation's quarantine authorities. Their message also contained information about how to properly and effectively use it to fight the virus. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will announce their answer during Friday's daily briefing in the afternoon. And according to the U.S. National Institutes of Health, Remdesivir has successfully shortened the median recovery time for COVID-19 from 15 days to 11. As community infections continue to spread through South Korea, mostly in the metropolitan areas, more than 800 schools and kindergartens have now delayed the reopening of classes. Now, this includes more than 280 schools in Bucheon, west of capital Seoul, where the e-commerce logistics center cluster infection is located. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
This is Yeouido High School in Seoul. Usually bustling with students, but today there are none in sight. This is because an instructor at a nearby cram school was confirmed to have been infected with COVID-19. 7 other schools in the area also closed, and quarantine authorities moved in to disinfect the schools. Another middle school in Seoul has closed after one of its students was found to have been infected by a family member who worked at the e-commerce logistics center in Bucheon, just west of Seoul. As a result of these sporadic community infections, 838 schools and kindergartens are now closed, and their reopening will be delayed. By region, Bucheon, Gyeonggi-do Province, where the Kupang Logistics Center is located, has the largest number of closed schools at 251, followed by 243 in Incheon, 182 in Gumi, Gyeongsangbuk-do Province, and 117 in Seoul. In particular, 284 schools in Bucheon, Incheon's Bupyeongguk District, and Gyeonggu districts have been closed due to the cluster infection at the logistics center.
Using a new method of alternating between both remote and in-school classes, we will adjust the number of students in school in order to minimize density.
On Wednesday, with the second phase of the reopening of schools and kindergartens, the attendance rate was almost 90.5%. However, that number will surely drop significantly as more parents opt to keep their kids at home due to the re-emergence of cluster infections around the nation. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The South Korean government reimposed some more coronavirus restrictions on Thursday after the country saw a spike in new cases. Museums, parks, and art galleries will all be closed again starting today for another 2 weeks as authorities struggle to track transmission routes. Our Choi Jung-yoon tells us more.
South Korea reported 79 new cases of COVID-19 on Thursday, 72 of which were community-based transmissions. This is the first time in 53 days that there were more than 70 in a single day. Such a figure comes following a cluster infection at a Kupang distribution center, one of South Korea's largest e-commerce companies in Bucheon, Gyeonggi-do Province, a satellite city 25 kilometers outside of Seoul. Gyeonggi-do Province reported Thursday a total of 86 cases linked to the Bucheon Logistics Center, the first ones 5 days ago. Health authorities say this outbreak could see several degrees of transmission since there have already been secondary infections among the families and friends of employees. So far, at least 19 people who are in close contact with the infected employees have contracted the virus. As this cluster infection comes as South Korea reopens its schools, the government has taken stronger quarantine measures to stop link transmission spreading farther. It announced that public facilities like parks and museums will be closed for 2 weeks starting this Friday in Seoul, Incheon, and the surrounding province of Gyeonggi-do. Also, entertainment facilities like bars and clubs are advised to close until June 14th, and social distancing measures will be strengthened if the situation isn't brought under control in the next 2 weeks.
In order to stop the virus from spreading in the metropolitan area, it's very important how we handle the next 2 weeks. If the outbreak continues to grow, we'll have no choice but to go back to strong social distancing.
The Gyeonggi-do provincial office has ordered a 2-week shutdown of Kupang's logistics centers in Bucheon and Goyang, where an additional case was confirmed. 최정윤, Arirang News.
The COVID-19 pandemic continues to take a sledgehammer to South Korea's economy, with the nation's manufacturing sector taking the biggest hit. According to Statistics Korea, the country's overall industrial output plunged 2.5% on-month in April. Looking at by sector, manufacturing saw a sharp on-month fall of 6%, its largest drop since 2008, on the back of dwindling demand for semiconductors and automobiles. Service sector and retail sales both experienced a slight bump as the spread of COVID-19 slowed in April compared to the month of March. Retail sales jumped 5.3% from the previous month, and facility investment posted a 5% increase on month. South Korea's Trade Ministry has announced that it will be keeping its anti-dumping duties on Japanese pneumatic valves. The ministry said on Thursday that Seoul has notified both the World Trade Organization and Japan that South Korea has implemented all of the WTO's decisions and recommendations. Back in 2015, South Korea imposed anti-dumping duties for 5 years on Japanese pneumatic valves, which are used in the auto industry and electronics sector. In September of last year, the WTO sided with Seoul in 10 out of 13 cases after Japan challenged the measure at the WTO's dispute settlement body. The U.S. economy shrank at an annual rate of 5% in the first 3 months this year, faster than the initial estimate of 4.8%, and a far worse outcome is likely in second quarter. The Commerce Department reported Thursday that it was the biggest quarterly decline since an 8.4% drop in the last quarter of 2008 during the global financial crisis. Economists say nationwide lockdowns and a massive uptick in unemployment will push growth down even further. And the White House says it'll not be releasing its official mid-year economic update this summer, stressing that the underlying economic data would be too uncertain to convey a meaningful picture about the recovery. Now, the clash between the world's two superpowers over Hong Kong and its national security law looks like it's heading to the UN Security Council. Reports say that both Washington and London have called to convene a UNSC meeting on Friday, U.S. Eastern Time, over China's move to push through its new national security law targeting Hong Kong. Washington's top economic advisor called Beijing's move a, quote, huge mistake, while Britain and Canada have also expressed their deep concern. Our Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
The top economic official in the White House says China has made, quote, a huge mistake passing its new national security law. In an interview with CNBC Thursday, Larry Kudlow said the people of Hong Kong have been robbed of their freedom. He added that Washington will not let this go unnoticed and Beijing will be held accountable. If needed, he said Hong Kong may now be treated the same way mainland China is, implying the U.S. will halt its special trading status with the island. Regarding the Phase 1 trade deal between Washington and Beijing, Kudlow explained that it will be maintained for the time being. President Trump, who has been sending continued warnings to China, is expected to address the issue during a press briefing scheduled for Friday local time. Trump has been hinting at a strong response, saying earlier that his administration will do something about Hong Kong. The U.S. was not the only country that slammed the new legislation. The UK, Australia, Canada, and the US released a joint statement scolding Beijing, saying the move would threaten Hong Kong's freedom. The British Foreign Minister said the four countries were very concerned.
We are deeply troubled about this step, and we've put out a joint statement. And the decision now lies with China, but if it follows through on this legislation and implements it, it would clearly violate the autonomy of the people of Hong Kong, and it would also violate the freedoms set out in the UK-China joint declaration, which dates back to 1984.
Other European countries, including France and Germany, also slammed China's bill. Germany's foreign minister explained that Hong Kong's autonomy shall not be destroyed, adding its freedom of expression shall be upheld going forward. Kim Yo-san, Arirang News.
Civil unrest is growing in the United States after the highly publicized death of an African-American man who was suffocated to death by a police officer in Minnesota. Riots have also broken out in the city, and several businesses have been targeted by angry residents demanding justice. Just a reminder to you, following images you're about to watch might be a bit disturbing. Our Kim Do-yeon with more.
George Floyd's life drained away as a police officer forced him to the ground, handcuffed him face down with his hands behind his back, and pinned his knee on the 46-year-old's neck. The tragic scene in Minneapolis was recorded and uploaded onto Twitter, causing instant uproar across the nation. All four of the police officers at the scene were fired, including the officer directly involved, within the 24 hours of the incident. But that was not enough to dampen the fury. Instead, massive protests and even violent riots broke out in Minneapolis and in other U.S. cities. Over the years, the black community has been calling out what they and others perceive to be police brutality and have been pushing for justice. In the Twin City, there have been 2 notable police shootings in the past 5 years alone that have been deemed by many residents to have been unjust, the deaths of Jamar Clark and Philando Castillo. The leaders of the 2 branches of the U.S. government called for action to be taken in this latest case.
And I've asked the Attorney General, FBI, and the Attorney General to take a very strong look and to see what went on, because that was a very, very bad thing that I saw. I saw it last night, and I didn't like it.
But there we saw it on TV, being murdered on TV. So our Congressional Black Caucus is working with the Judiciary Committee.
Unlike past incidents of police brutality, police departments across the U.S. have criticized the actions of the officers in the Floyd case, denouncing the incident and seeking to reassure their respective citizens. Activists say, "I can't breathe," are words that should never have been uttered by a citizen being investigated by police. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The U.S. Justice Department has indicted more than 30 North Korean and Chinese nationals on charges of laundering over $2.5 billion to help fund Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. According to the New York Times on Thursday, 28 North Koreans and 5 Chinese nationals are accused of using more than 200 shell companies to launder the funds through the international banking system. The money reportedly went to North Korea's state-owned Foreign Trade Bank and was used to fund the regime's nuclear program. North Korea is currently under multiple layers of U.S. and UN sanctions for its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Fans of K-pop may want to listen up to this next story. There is a good reason to be excited on this Friday, as Lady Gaga and K-pop quartet Blackpink dropped a collaborative track called Sour Candy on Thursday, just a day ahead of its international release. In a recent interview, Lady Gaga said she's proud to be the 5th member of Blackpink. Now, the track is also included on Lady Gaga's 6th studio album, Chromatica. Alternating between Korean and English lyrics, Sour Candy is the latest track to be released as a single of the album. It's coming out 7 weeks later than originally planned due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Good morning. It's going to be shorts and t-shirt weather this afternoon, with highs heading into the upper 20s in many regions, hovering a couple notches higher than season norms. So it's going to feel more like mid-July. And what about the sunshine? UV levels will be very high nationwide. While high temperatures and sunshine could send the ozone level into the bad range in many regions, so please be mindful of that. What's more, a lack of wind could make it feel hotter than the actual temperatures. Daegu, Gwangju getting up to 29, Gyeongju at 27 degrees. The last weekend of May looks to be warm and sunny, while Jeju will see light rain tomorrow night. Looking ahead, temperatures will continue to go up and down, but we'll surely notice warmer morning lows than this week. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for views around the world.
And that does it for us at this hour on Arirang News. As always, thanks for watching.
Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft Corporation, has lauded Korea as a global